So hey, you want to talk about some video games?
Yep.
I mean, but why? This is a movie podcast. How are we talking about video games?
Okay, Garrett, you just have to have a little bit of goddamn faith. All right? Sound good to you,
Whatever
boy?
you say, Dutch. I can't do a good accent. Whatever you say, Dutch.
Yeah. You're all right, boy.
Is it because it's very cinematic? Is that why you think it's okay to put on this podcast?
No. And thank you once again, everybody, for joining us on another episode of the Digital Drive-In Podcast, where we talk about our favorite movies and what we love about them and what makes them so great. But psych, because today is not a movie episode. Today is something completely different. We've been teasing it for a long time, and it's finally here. And 8 years later, it's arrived.
We've given them enough blue balls.
And I hope you weren't sitting around waiting for it, because you will be sorely disappointed. Today, we will be talking about something that is not a movie. Hence, there is no number on this episode. It's a special episode. What are we talking about, Garrett, Donardo?
We're talking about Rockstar Games and the Red Dead series.
But more specifically, we're talking about a recently released video game, Red Dead Redemption 2, which released on Xbox One and PS4. Late October.
How many Game of the Year awards did it win?
So far, 0.
Well, it must be a
sucks.
terrible game.
Oh, no, but of course, Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, and Garrett and I were pulled into it pretty hard, and we're here to give general sort of impressions and thoughts on the game. If you're still on the fence on it, which I don't think you are, because it is the fastest selling entertainment property in history. Everybody is playing this game or has played this game, but if you are on the fence about it at all, hopefully 2 random nobodies on the internet can convince you to play it.
We're just doing it because we want to talk about it, not because we're trying to convince people to buy it.
No, that's all I'm here for. Is I'm just trying to take people's money. And in fact, you send me your credit card information, I'll buy the game for you. I'll make it easier on you. This discussion is going to be mostly spoiler free. Of course, we're going to be talking about some moments throughout the open world, things that we liked, and little missions that we found to be interesting. We're going to try to stay away from story spoilers as much as we can. So for the most part, like I said, spoiler free. General impressions on the game, and if we do want to talk about the story, any spoilers at all, I will warn you up front about it, because I know there are still a lot of people slowly working their way through the game, and rightfully so, because there's a lot to unpack in this game, isn't there, Garrett?
Tahiti.
Yep, Tahiti. Now, there is a lot to unpack in this game, and that's pretty much par for the course for Rockstar Games Studios. One of the most important and influential game developer and publishers of all time. Garrett, what is your experience kind of, I guess, with Rockstar Games? What's the first game you played by them? Do you like their games generally? And did you like Red Dead Redemption 2 in a quick little...
Well, I would say my experience with Rockstar Games is I was playing their games before they were called Rockstar. I don't remember what their name was before. Only a few minutes of research. Something like that. But it's like, especially like the top-down Grand Theft Auto games. But it's like when they really came into their own was probably Grand Theft Auto 3. But
right.
Probably from Grand Theft Auto 3 to present, I would buy their games as soon as they would come out.
Yeah.
And I think I've beat every Rockstar game from Grand Theft Auto 3 forward. So I do like them. They're probably one of my favorite publishers. Not so enthralled with Take-Two because of how they are with microtransactions, but giving the fact that they are a business and they're in it to make money, I do really like what Rockstar does. Um, Red Dead Revolver never really got much into, but Red Dead Redemption, the first one, was probably one of my favorite games of all time.
Right.
It's definitely in the top of the list, so I was eagerly anticipating the second one. And for me personally, everything the second one did is like it met all my expectations, and in some aspects exceeded them. And especially with characters, I thought it did fantastic, and so I was really happy with the sequel. I felt like it fit as being the next step in that series.
Nice. What would you say your favorite was before Red Dead Redemption 2?
My favorite game, or
Sure. Game period or game by Rockstar as well.
probably San Andreas.
Right.
It's just it's like Grand Theft Auto 3 was fantastic, Vice City was fantastic, San Andreas was fantastic. It's like they just kept stepping it up. I don't feel like 4 and 5 are the steps up I wish they would be. There are some good things in them, but there's other things I don't like about them. And especially 5 with how they went, like there was no story additions and the story felt really empty, and it seemed like all of their progress went towards the online section, so I wasn't really happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
So Red Dead Redemption 2, the single player story itself being so well done, like reinvigorated my feelings about it.
Right. Yeah. Kind of redeemed themselves for you.
Yeah, but as we will get into as well, the online and where it's at right this minute, I'm starting to get those old feelings again.
Yeah. And we will get to that probably towards the very latter end of this podcast, but I feel it's almost an inverse this time around. I think they put a lot of effort into the story and almost none into the online so far.
Right.
But
yeah.
That's what I would rather.
Right. Yeah, especially
Honestly,
since you're paying for the single player portion.
Yeah. I'm not paying for the online, which is what GTA 5 turned into now. Is if you're getting into it now, really you're paying for the online, and then the single player comes on the side, which is what it shouldn't be. But I'm relatively the same as you. I haven't been playing Rockstar Games since Grand Theft Auto 3. The first one I ever played was Red Dead Redemption. But then I did go back and I haven't played 3 or Vice City, but I've played San Andreas on in every game Rockstar's released since San Andreas. I love pretty much all of them. I mean, I'm not too hot on Midnight Club, Los Angeles. I was more of a Need for Speed Most Wanted kind of guy.
Sure.
But and I wasn't too hot on table tennis either. But anyway, there was Grand Theft Auto 4 I thought was quite good, but I played it after Red Dead Redemption, so it was a little it felt a little lacking, a little lackluster. Some of the stuff felt a little dated to me. San Andreas was wacky enough that I could get through it, I think, but the serious nature of GTA 4 I thought was, just after playing later games, was almost counteracted by the jankiness of the combat and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I would be pressed to say that Red Dead Redemption 1 is my favorite game of all time before Red Dead Redemption 2 comes out, and we'll get to that if I think that number 2 surpassed it in a little bit, I guess. I would say that Grand Theft Auto 5 in its entirety is probably in my top 10, maybe in my top 5 of all time. I thought that although the world was quite empty, I thought it was still ridiculously impressive in scale for the consoles it was originally released on, which was the 360 and the PS3. I thought that it was massive, a little almost pushing it to its limits. I know my Xbox back in 2013 sounded like a jet engine taking off whenever I would load it up, which is apparently what the PS4 still sounds like to this day. But yeah, basically Rockstar is one of very few publishers in this day and age that I am 100% comfortable giving my money to every single time. I would honestly say that there are only 2 nowadays, developers or publishers, that I would give my money to immediately. I used to say that Bethesda was up there. Fallout 4 didn't impress me all too much. The whole 76 fiasco really pushed me over the edge to the point where I'll never buy a game from Bethesda again until I hear extensively if it is on par with what I fell in love with, which is, Oblivion and Fallout 3 and even though it was Obsidian, New Vegas, and Skyrim, or if it's Fallout 4 and 76, more of that. So they're on my shit list again almost. But really, Rockstar Games and Playdead Interactive, I think they're called, who are
not
the
CD
developers.
Project Red, huh?
CD's pretty close, but I've only played The Witcher 3, so it's one of those like
sense.
The Witcher 3 was utterly perfect, but I gotta wait for. I'm gonna buy Cyberpunk probably immediately because it does look awesome. But I mean, if it doesn't impress me much, then no, I'm not gonna. They're not on that list. It's only been one game. But Limbo for me was with Playdead. Limbo was one of those once in a lifetime experiences. I thought they couldn't surpass that at all. And they were silent for 6 years, and then they released Inside, which was their second game. Same kind of style, but 3D. Of course, those are side-scrolling puzzle with really, really dark dystopian elements, both the games. And Inside again blew me out of the water. It was the once in a lifetime experience again. And basically, I just sit on my couch every day and await news if Playdead's going to release another game. When's it going to happen? I got on a Playdead rant, I guess, but whatever.
Nothing wrong with that.
But yeah, so Rockstar Games, they've been that sort of once in a... I'm using it a lot, but at this point, quite literally once in a generation sort of developers. We haven't had a Rock since 2013. And, that game ended the life cycle of the PS3 and 360 era. And then this was the only game on this era. As we're going, Rockstar's not going to release another game before the next consoles come out. So it's almost like an event every time they release a game now. And it's like going to see the newest Avengers or a Star Wars episode or something, where if you're not there, you're missing out on something huge culturally. And I know Red Dead Redemption 2, and especially Grand Theft Auto 5, which has been consistently trucking for the 5 years it's been out, is sort of this cultural phenomenon, I guess, where you could say that people who don't play games play Rockstar Games, which is kind of, I think, a testament in itself.
I would agree, yeah.
So yeah, we'll dive right into Red Dead Redemption 2 then, now that we've sort of given our backgrounds on our personal relationships with Rockstar and I guess to some extent the gaming industry. Garrett, what did you think? We'll start super general, like a super general statement on the game, and then we'll talk about some of the gameplay elements and a bunch of stuff before we get into specifics of story and missions and such.
Sure.
What did you think of Red Dead Redemption 2?
I liked it. I think you could even say I loved it. What I look for in a game is immersion, and I felt like this was very much so put you into the game. It's not necessarily what I would consider a perfect game, because there are some things that I maybe, and that's one of the things, like, it offers so much freedom and does so much detail, but it does it in such a way that sometimes you wish it would do that across the board.
Yeah.
So, you could only, it's like they did as much as they could, and they completely did a lot of fantastic things. And so my complaint sometimes is just, I wish they could have done everything. But that's physically impossible. So, I can't like count that against them, I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
So my general impression is it did the things that I wanted it to do, and it did it very strongly, and therefore
Nice.
I don't know if that's the general impressions you wanted to hear.
No. That's was you kind of cut out at the end. But it should come through on the thing. Yeah, for me, basically the same. I think I liked it a little more. I don't know. But at the same time, and when we get into sort of the variety and stuff like that, is where we'll talk about it. The open world. The more I look back on this game, having finished it a little over a month or maybe even close to 2 ago, the story is impeccable. Right. It is absolutely incredible in every sense of the word. You know, the characters, the motion capture, the performance capture, really, the writing and the direction behind it and everything just feels so fully realized and accomplished. It feels like a game that took 8 years consistently straight, if not longer, to produce. And you can almost feel every single minute of it in the story. But then the more I look back on it, the sort of as impressive, ridiculously impressive as the open world is in scale and size and all of that, I do find it was a little empty again, just like GTA kind of was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I found myself at the start of the game's launch, long extended hours roaming around and hunting, which is fantastic, and I loved, and it was immensely fun. But, you know, that was kind of what the open world was filled with for me. There were points where I'm like, I want to go over there and rob that, and the game was like, no, you can't do that, sorry.
Right.
Which
that's why
to some extent, yeah, I didn't like that to some extent, because I thought it was going to be fully open in every single way. But at the same time, you know, I am quite easy to please, I think. So even when the game told me you can't do that, I was like, oh, okay, I'll probably end up back here later then, or something like that. I'll probably just rob this in the story. More often than not, maybe I did, but you know, certain elements of the open world I thought were slightly lacking. But at the same time, there's all of these hidden little episodes, I guess, around the world. Whether it's in random houses you can find or just walking down the street, there's all of these roaming, living NPCs, each with their own little like interactions and stories. And I think that's where the game really, really, really shines outside of the main Arthur story. I don't know if you get that too. All of the random houses you could wander into, and you would just have like a little interaction with somebody.
Right. I think it's fantastic, and it really adds to the story. But if the person doesn't do that, it almost like they miss so many things that are like integral to the storytelling parts.
Right.
So that's kind of, I mean, and that's one of the things. And as you were saying it, it made me think of it more so in like terminology that I could use. If you go into it thinking this is an open world, I can do and be whatever I want, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
It is an air quotes open world, but Rockstar, and this game probably more so than any of their others, it is like it's a storytelling technique that they want to use the cinematic motion capture, the writing of the characters, and they want you to experience it that way. So it is really handholdy, and things don't really go as far as maybe you might like them to. So you really don't have much choice over the characterization. You don't have much choice as to decisions you can make or how you want to accomplish missions. And even though in those aspects that part of it is a little disappointing because you don't have the freedom, but when you do it the way that they want you to do it, and the story that comes from that is so well told, you can like forgive them for kind of holding and forcing your hand a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Once you realize that and you just kind of go along with the ride, which I mean, I did very quickly. I was just kind of, anytime I did the story, I was fine. I didn't care. There's a lot of criticism, I think, that the story missions have a lack of variety. I didn't notice it until I read the criticisms after I finished the game. Like, I was so sucked into it, and I just didn't care. The way I was doing it was executed so excellently that it was just immensely entertaining. And I mean, Arthur's story is just so fantastic. And as a character, he's probably the best video game protagonist I've ever seen.
No, I would agree with you on that. I feel the same way.
If not the best, and if not one of the best protagonists I've seen in anything, I would say. His arc is just so fully fleshed out. I mean, I'm at a loss for words without spoiling it, but you know, the game is called Red Dead Redemption, and experiencing his arc is, you know, well and truly just, I would say, one of the highlights of my gaming career, getting to experience Arthur's story.
Well, John Marston's characterization in the first game was maybe like 18 to 25 hours of story?
Yeah, probably about.
So it takes like how good and how concentrated that is, but spans it out to be 60 to 80 hours.
Yeah,
And
the
to do
story
that
itself
at
is
the
that long, but it's still as in depth.
right. And so to be able to pull that off on a long format, this shows like how well done the writing is and how well they knew the character to be able to do that consistently for such a long period of time and make you grow to be attached to that character.
Yeah.
So that it becomes your story, even though you're able to differentiate yourself from the character. It's not a role playing game where the character becomes what you want him to be. It's like at the
Right.
end, you're wanting things for the character. It's like as the character is going through the story, you're feeling good about it, you're feeling bad about it, whatever it is. You're like along for the ride, as you said.
Yeah, it's very similar in that way to The Witcher 3. I think
I would say that. Yeah,
The Witcher 3 is a lot more, I think, of an RPG in gameplay, not
because
in
you do have the
story.
choices.
Because well,
right,
you do have the choices in what to say and all that. You don't in Red Dead Redemption 2. It plays out like a movie, which isn't bad at all. I think that they're two completely like opposite sides of the scale almost, right? The Witcher 3 gives you full choice on what to say. Red Dead Redemption does not, but they're both you sort of probably the most perfect examples of each of their respective methods of storytelling.
I would agree.
I think that, both Arthur and Geralt are sort of, you are along for that ride and you do experience that arc. I think that Arthur over Geralt has a lot more of like an actual full blown arc, but they're both incredibly well. And now I'm going to go ahead and rant about The Witcher 3 because that's the game I think does the open world better than Red Dead does.
Right. Better than a lot of games do.
Better than pretty much every game. Even though at the start of the cast I said I'd be pressed to say Red Dead Redemption is my favorite game of all time, that's because I can't just snap and definitively give you an answer on what my favorite game is. I would say it was Red Dead Redemption, but then The Witcher 3 I forgot about when I said that, and thinking about it now, The Witcher 3 is this fantastic game in every single regard at the level that Red Dead Redemption 2 is, I would say. But in some extent I wanted that from Red Dead 2. I wanted that Witcher 3 kind of open world. Now, that's not to say that I hate what we got at all or even dislike what we got. It's not even to say that I wanted a little more depth to the open world, because I didn't. I wasn't bitching and complaining when I was playing about it. I probably played the single player for a month and a half straight without stopping. So just looking back on it,
I was
now,
right there.
I think maybe it was a little depth. What's that?
I was just said that I was right there with you. I was playing the same amount of time basically.
Yeah, but it's Rockstar, I think, even though it sounds like I'm bashing it a little bit, I'm not. I well and truly think that they hit this game out of the park. It's everything I wanted and more. It's this wonderful, and I hate to say it again, once in a generation experience kind of thing. We've, like I said, never experienced a story like this or a character like this, and we probably never will again, at least until Rockstar makes another game. Is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, those are all. It's like I would just reiterate the points. And it's interesting. It's like I'm coming from a completely different gaming background than you do. It's like some of my favorite games are like the LucasArts point and click adventure games and Myst and SimCity and things like that. Yeah. And so it's like depth and world building, and like, I mean, the game does allow you freedoms in certain areas.
Yeah. And, definitely.
And it allows certain customization. And it's like, while I couldn't choose to do something than you could choose, like there are certain scenarios like, and this isn't really a spoiler because I think people know about this, is like you have a camp. And it's like you can spend time in the camp and just like wave at people and greet them and do chores for them. But as the longer you stay in there, the more you hear different dialogue and you get to see like characters reacting to each other. Obviously that's all written in, but you could just like the depth of seeing how many different things can these characters say, or how will they react differently to you. And even though everyone basically that stays in camp has the same story, you almost like it almost fools you enough to make you feel like you're the first one to discover this and they're actually talking to you. So they do a good job like hiding that within the game to show that, you know, there's something there and you're kind of getting rewarded for being around camp and doing the things that the game didn't explicitly tell you to do.
Which I liked, because for a while I didn't even know the chore aspect to the camps. And then when I found out, I wanted to try it out. So they're always bringing hay across the camp and putting it down. The second I did, somebody was like, "Oh, thanks, Arthur. I've been waiting for somebody to do that." And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." And it's just all these little things. Like, I loved the camp element in this game. I thought it was awesome and really nice, and a great way to get to know all these characters, so that when Rockstar inevitably rips some of them away from you, you start crying full blown.
Yeah.
Absolute waterworks, and you know, people have to come down and ask you if you're okay, and you tell them no.
Wow.
I'm not. But
that seems a little harsh.
Anyway, and I would like to see that element expanded upon in a further game. If Rockstar does another game and they have a similar aspect to it in whatever way it is, say it's the Grand Theft Auto 6 and they have say it's like, what's that biker DLC they did for number 4, The Lost and the Damned? Say the camp is like that, but you're a biker gang, warehouse, and you go back there and you can talk to all the people and like do chores for them and watch the strippers with them and stuff like that. If they did that, but just expanded upon it, I think made it a little more fully fleshed out, because there are some elements like the money element in the camp that aren't exactly ideal or matter. But like you said, I think the camp is the best for learning the characters. And you know, like I sat down in the camp for like 3 hours or something and just walked around and talked to people, waited for the day to night cycle to go by. When the night cycle came along, you know, Javier pulled out his guitar and started playing a song, and everybody got drunk and everybody was belting the song out with him. And then we played dominoes, and then I crashed and woke up and everybody was hungover as shit. And I feel like I was growing with these characters at the same time, and I was getting to know them and getting to love them. And they were almost becoming my family. Like, they're already Arthur's family, but it's almost like I was becoming a part of the family too, which is kind of weird to say, I think, if you haven't played the game, or weird to hear. But I think it's legit. Like, you do almost fall for these people, and you want to see the best go for them.
Well, and it's good for the character motivations to see, like, why would someone stay within this camp and deal with all this stuff?
Yeah.
Well, it's because they want to help them. And okay, yeah, maybe Arthur can do all this stuff by himself, but everyone can't do all this stuff by themselves. So it gives you, like, plot reasons and motivations why these things have to take place. And I think that sometimes that's overlooked in games. It's like you just have to create your own reasons. But here it's like, through the story, they were able to tell you these things without, like, advertently coming right out and saying, you're staying here because. And it's like, I liked that those things were revealed to me in a way that I could figure them out, and that gave me a personal attachment to the story.
All the characters feel very alive, in the sense that, you know, and I use this kind of idiom, I guess, a lot when talking about world building in movies. If you've listened to any of our other episodes, that you've probably heard it from me before, or any of my other podcast appearances. But this is very much a world that feels like it's existed long before we've stepped into it, and is a world that will exist long after. And we already know it does, because, you know, this is a prequel to the first Red Dead. But once the second we get into that snow area, and, you know, people are barking orders at each other and stuff, you can almost already tell who's in charge, or to a lesser extent or a different extent, when somebody, you know, comes in from the cold or is hurt, and then certain people rush to help them at camp, you can tell who's, like, compassionate, or who does what jobs around the camp, who's like the nurses, who's the boss. You know, you have Miss Grimshaw barking orders at people and just being like the sassy mom character kind of thing. And you get that immediately. And I think that that's kind of hard to pull off in anything, in movies, in games, or anything like that. But to have that, I think it's harder in games to have that immediate connection, because you kind of need to convince the player that they are, you know, in charge, or like that they have to listen to this person in some regards. When you walk into camp and Arthur's dirty, Miss Grimshaw will slap you in the head and throw you in the kind of thing and tell you to wash up. This world, these characters just all feel like a family, and they all feel so alive. And I think that that's something that it's rarely, if ever, been seen this impactfully with this many characters in gaming, and it's wonderful stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like every character kind of has a moment to shine in the story as well.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't really feel like, oh, well, that guy was left out. I kind of wish I would have known more about him. It's like, even, I mean, not that you don't want to spend more time with them, but it's like it does give kind of everyone to have their own moment, and it gives them more complexity of a character rather than just like a paper cutout of a character. But I will say there is an honor system in the game, but like if you're a really rotten individual and treat people that way, the story doesn't really work with that.
No, not really at all.
So again, there's not really that freedom of just being able to be whoever you want to be. But I feel like even though like I play more of a nice person anyway in these types of games,
as do I, yeah.
I think that it had a really good balancing of these are criminals, but they're also human. And if, you know, it's like there's a reason behind what they do, and there's a reason behind what they don't do. And as you progress in the game, it becomes more and more apparent of the way Arthur should act.
Right.
And so you naturally go in the direction that the story is basically kind of forcing your hand to. And it doesn't make sense to do it the other way. But I realize some people ahead of time are like, I just want to be the most badass, dirty fella. Then I just want to be, you know, ride through the town and shoot the crap out of everybody in the city. And it's not Grand Theft Auto in that aspect where you can just go. I mean, you can just go on rampages, but it doesn't really. It's, you know, he's not.
It doesn't make sense at all,
right?
From a story standpoint. But if you don't care about the story standpoint, you probably do that. But like I said, and like you said, that's what we came to this game looking for, was the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very happy, again, like we said before, with how the story turned out. Even if you are bad, the game gives you plenty of options without getting the spoilers. Late game to correct your honor and bring it back up to high.
Right.
It's actually not possible to get a low or high honor until or like max low or max high honor until the final chapter, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I also can't play games like a bad game. I'm in the same boat as you there.
Yeah, it's like that's one of the things that kind of bothered me about 5 with Trevor.
Right.
It's like, well, yeah, he's
psychotic.
He's completely crazy, but I don't really want to play as that guy.
I think that game really would have worked if you just played as Frank, and then just had Michael as the wise mentor, teaching you the ways of bank robbing, and then Trevor as the wild card, who always throws a monkey wrench in every plan. But you didn't switch between the three of them. You just only experienced everything through Trevor or through Franklin.
I think splitting it was the biggest mistake they made.
Yeah, but I always applaud them for trying something different.
Oh, sure. And maybe
they didn't do it in this game, so maybe they either learned their lesson, felt it wasn't as good as it was, or just wanted to do it as a one-off thing.
Sure. And I mean, the other side of that too is maybe that's how they are able to write such a good foundation of a gang and having each character feel more fleshed out, because they tried to make a game with 3 main characters.
Right. And now they're making a game with like 8 main characters kind of thing. They already have that experience.
Right. But instead of having you play as them, they write it as though there's enough backstory for each one, but you're literally only playing as the one guy. So maybe that did help, or, you know, who knows. But I like the way this is done. And
the writing in this is brilliant, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's brilliant stuff. We kind of already talked about it, but I just want to stress it again, how brilliantly written this game is.
Oh, and man. I felt that's how the first game was too. And it's like,
yeah.
You know, and if in movies you talk about prequels, I mean, that's almost a dirty word.
Right.
Because there are very few that are even any good. I mean, not even like as good as the originals. That just even a standalone is any good.
Now there's one that really is.
Godfather 2.
I was going to say, you drew a lot of... you said that a lot, that this game reminded you of that while we were playing it, because we kind of played it at the exact same time and we're communicating with each other over everything, basically. But that's the one thing you never really clarified to me was what you entirely meant by that. Did you just mean it was a good prequel? Or was there certain elements that caught your eye? Can you say it without spoiling?
Sure. I mean, even people that haven't ever seen Godfather 2, the first Godfather was about how one character basically had nothing to do with the mafia, and then how he got involved and got deep within the mafia. So it was like the rise of one character. So it's like, where do you go after that? So it's interesting. Godfather 2 is like a prequel and a sequel combined. You have basically the complete rise of power and almost like the falling off of like extemporaneous things of this character. But then it goes back in time and has like how the foundation of everything got started. And so it's like it's juggling these two storylines, but both of them are like extremely compelling, and both the characters are interesting because there are parallels, but then there's also differences. So Red Dead Redemption 2 follows Arthur rather than John, but it's like the John Marston was in the first Red Dead, and so you kind of got to see how he grew as a character and how he got his redemption.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to see the same thing of parallels and differences with Arthur, but then you also get to see like the gang members and people that you've seen in the first game. Like how did they get the way that they were? You know, were they always that way? What motivated them? How did they become who they were? And it's
Right.
interesting to see a parallel storyline of someone that is in a very similar position, or maybe, you know, what he wants to become, and then someone who is slowly becoming the people that you already know they've become.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like storyline and characterization wise, and like the depth of getting to know characters more is what made me constantly go back to Godfather 2, is because it was doing all those things the correct way, in a way that was interesting. And it wasn't, I mean, in some movies that have multiple storylines, you're really loving one storyline, and then when it goes to the next storyline, you're like, oh, well, I can't wait to get back to that original story.
Yeah.
But this is kind of like every storyline it starts, I'm like, yeah, wow, this is really great. I'm glad it went in this direction. And then it goes back to the other one. I'm like, oh yeah, right. I forgot. Yeah, let's see what happens to this guy. Mm-hmm. You know, so it was like each time it was going to the next thing, I was excited that it was going to the next thing because I knew it would tell me something else or have something fun to do in it. And that's really how RDR2 was liked for me.
Right. Cool. And now you're talking sort of about getting to know other characters that we knew in Red Dead 1, getting to know them a little better. I think that there's a little bit lacking in Bill and Javier in this game. That's one of my only problems, I think. But it's not that big of a deal because it's not their story. Who knows? Maybe they'll do
Which is interesting. I mean, it could be. There were a lot of background conversations with both Bill and Javier.
Yes.
That tell you a lot, and if you're not there to hear it, they seem like they turn on a dime, and there's very little going on. But if you're actually there to hear it, the motivations are so clear, and you can completely understand why they do the things that they do.
Right.
And it's one of those things. It's like the more you stick with the story and you don't just try to rush to do the next mission, the more you will get out of it.
Yeah. I think there just should have been just a tad more attention to Bill and Javier in the story itself, considering how big of parts they were in the first game. Like, it's literally the first game. If you're unfamiliar or forget, listeners, Red Dead Redemption, your first Red Dead Redemption, is about John Marston's quest to get his family back from the government, and to do so, he has to go hunt down 3 of his old gang members: Bill Williamson, Javier Escuela, and Dutch Vanderlyn. But he has to kill all of them, and you know, every time he kills one of them, it's very much like you almost feel that like, fuck you, you dirty piece of shit kind of thing. But I didn't think with Bill or Javier we got any of that all too much. I think it should have been just a tad more in the story, so that it's, if you're not staying at the camp a bunch of times, you can relate the number 1 and number 2 a little better. But I do understand what you mean because there was, and small spoilers here, I think it's in chapter 2 or 3 though. Javier has a brief aside with somebody where all he says, or somebody questions Dutch, and Javier like threatens him and says, "You shut the hell up, like I'll follow Dutch to the ends of the earth no matter what," kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of, you can kind of see the motivation starting to brew a little bit there. But
well, and too, it's his family. Right. He didn't have a family. They like, I can't remember if they abandoned him or something happened where he wasn't with them anymore. And so Dutch was his family, and so he can't stand to lose his family again.
Right.
And then, and it's kind of the interesting thing is like at the and if you need to cut this out, you can. I just want to tell you about it. Bill, at the beginning of the first game, John basically says, "I've come to save you."
Yeah.
So it's almost like he realizes Bill isn't all bad, but I think Bill is more selfish. Like he just kind of does his own thing. And it's like from John having an altercation with Bill and what happens in the first game is the building point of now why he comes after him. Whereas before it was like, I think we could resolve this peacefully. I don't think you're necessarily a bad guy. And then he's like, guess what, I am.
Shoots him in the gut, yeah.
Right.
That's like the opening scene in the first game.
Yeah. So it's like, I think some of that maybe they felt like, and you don't necessarily have to kill Javier either in the first game.
No, you're right about that.
You can turn him in alive. So if you were thinking as John, you could save Bill, and then that doesn't work out, and then you didn't kill Javier, and it's just like what he did caused him to get hung or hanged. Really, the only one you're going after is Dutch. And
like we're gonna spoil an 8-year-old game here. We're gonna spoil Red Dead Redemption 1. We're not gonna spoil Red Dead Redemption 2. You don't even kill Dutch.
Right.
He kills himself.
So it could just be that John really only kills one of the guys from the gang.
That's true.
And that was really in self-defense.
But
right.
No, he's on the ground.
Yeah.
He's pinned by the Mexican general guy, and the Mexican general guy's like, "Here, take Bill," or whatever, and then you just shoot Bill in the face.
But he had it coming.
Oh yeah. He did shoot you at the beginning of the game, so he's the only one that over.
You know, and so I think if you look at it in that way, and especially if you look at it like as a mafia or a Yakuza film, they all got off really light compared to what they came from.
Right.
You know, and that's another reason why, and again, you can take this out if you feel you need to, Arthur is not that character at all.
No, not at all.
He will fucking tear you up.
Which I like. There's that duality almost of John from the first game and Arthur in the second game.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, and this is something I wanted to get to too, John is in Red Dead Redemption 2. And there were conversations we had before the game came out, and one of the key things we thought was that, or you thought maybe, was that John was not going to be a big part of this game. You thought he was going to be in maybe the first couple of chapters and then leave because they didn't want to fuck with the character at all. You know, what you have in number 1. John is in a very, very large of this game.
Right.
He is arguably the second most main character in this game, if not maybe the third behind Dutch as well.
Right.
But it is the 3 of them. It's the 3 of their stories. And maybe, you know, that's Kim's from GTA 5 again. And they had a little bit of experience writing for 3 characters. But the 3 leads of this game are Arthur, Dutch, and John, which I thought was incredibly interesting. I didn't think they were going to use John as much as they did. And as the game went on and further, you know, his character got enriched and deeper, and it made Red Dead Redemption a better game.
Yeah. Well, and some of the reason why is not like I didn't think they could pull it off or I didn't think you'd be a valuable part of the story. It's the voice actor of John Marston.
Right.
Like retired and didn't do anything after Red Dead Redemption 1. So I was like, if they get him back, he's probably not going to be in it long because he's retired.
But he was.
No, he
unreal.
was the whole game. Yeah.
Yep. There's so many fucking spoiler shits that I want to talk about.
I know. Well, and the other thing is too, John Marston is probably one of my favorite video game characters, and I kept thinking, how are they going to top him? I'm going to want to play as John. Every time I see him, I want to take him with me. It's like, but it's like Arthur grew on me, and Arthur's a fantastic character, and to me, he's up there, if maybe not surpassed John.
I fully think he does surpass John.
But it's like you can't have Arthur without having John.
No, not at
so
all.
you almost can't separate them, and that's why I want to say.
And it's weird, without getting into spoilers again, is you can't have John without having Arthur.
Without having what?
You can't have John without having Arthur.
Oh yeah.
Without getting into spoilers, the two of them
they're tied together.
They're tied together, and it's this amazing story, not only for Arthur but for characters we already know as well. Dutch's character in the first game, he only pops up for like the last act of the film. Basically, he's like the third act bad guy, and he's in like 3 scenes.
Right, but it's memorable.
He kills a woman in the town. You fight him going up the place, and then he jumps off the cliff. Basically, that's about it. I think there's one more interaction he has, but he's not in it very much. But yeah, it's memorable. And then to have the super duper in depth dive into, almost the destruction of a man's psyche throughout the second game that we have of Dutch is just amazing. And props to Benjamin Brian Davis, I think his name is, the guy that plays Dutch.
Oh, yes.
Arguably better than the guy that plays Arthur. Forget his name.
Roger Clark.
The two of them together, especially the scenes that they have, all the scenes that they have together are so fantastic and well acted. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean,
these characters just come to life.
Maybe this is sacrilegious. But in Godfather, you have James Caan, Marlon Brando, and Al Pacino. 3 fantastic, top of their game actors.
Right.
And I think that Dutch, Arthur, and John rival that.
Yeah, I would say.
It's like to be able to cast. This game is cast perfectly. There's not someone I'm like, man, I wish that guy hadn't been the voice actor.
No, I fully agree.
It's almost always, wow, I wish they would have done more with him. It's never like
Which is weird because it's like an 80-hour game. I wish they had done more with him, but the story's already like 100 hours.
Yep.
It's just absolutely fantastic stuff. And we talked a lot about the characters. Do you have anything more you want to talk about the characters at all?
Sure. But the thing is, we can't talk forever about them. And I really think being as spoiler-free as possible is good. Because like you said, a lot of people have bought this game and a lot of people have played the game, but I don't think a lot of people have gotten through the game.
I think there's still only like 12 or 15% of players on the Xbox One that have booted the game up have finished the second epilogue. So
yeah, and I think
it's finishing
almost
the game.
Exactly
you have to finish the 2 epilogues. There are epilogues, which is not a spoiler. I think that was openly stated that there's 6 chapters and 2 epilogues.
Well, and it's on the social club too. So
yeah, the story ends, and then there is more. That's what an epilogue is. Finish them before you pass any judgments about the story. Really. Because you're not done the story yet. That's what I say. I saw so many people bitching and complaining, trying not to get into spoilers about chapters, like the late chapters before the 2 epilogues. But once you finish the game, it all makes sense, I think. And that's what, if you're still listening to this, I'm trying not to spoil it at all, anything that happens. But just get through it and see what you think before being like, this fucking sucks, or anything like that. So
I think anyone that's going to jump to the conclusion of that, no matter what you tell them to do, they're going to have their own opinion.
Oh yeah. I'm just saying the people that stopped after chapter 6 because they were like, I don't want to continue. Where like I'm trying not to spoil it at all, but
right. No, but the thing is, he shouldn't. I mean, really, nothing we've said has spoiled anything past like the beginning few chapters.
Yeah, latest we've done is maybe chapter 3 with some of the happier stuff we were talking about. I don't even know when that is, but
and I don't even really think. I mean, it was like stuff that you wouldn't even necessarily.
It's not even really a spoiler, especially if you play number 1, where John's like talks to Javier and he's like, "You and Dutch went crazy," or whatever.
Right.
I mean, that's in the first game. So
well, I mean, the thing is too,
game.
Gameplay trailers actually shows parts of the story almost through Chapter 6.
Yeah, there's
You remember? Yeah.
there's a couple of parts in some of the gameplay trailers,
right,
that are like last 2 or 3 missions of the 6
late
chapters.
in the game.
Yeah.
So, if you know, I
There's
seriously
a big
doubt
moment in one of the trailers that's like the last mission.
Yeah,
that's common. That's
that kind of bugged me a little bit
for movies and games nowadays, anyway. So
yep, you can't watch any of them.
So I guess then moving off of all the characters in the story, because we've exhausted what we can talk about without spoiling it. Perhaps we'll do a second episode eventually where we just straight do just story spoilers and we just talk about stories. But
that makes sense.
There's a lot of really interesting open world elements in this game, and a lot of, like I said earlier, things you can just happen upon, be it just tiny interactions with an NPC or sort of small side quests and stranger missions. That can be varied, and I think it excels in the fact that you can tackle some of the different ways, which is what I was hoping for the open quest and some of the story missions. Again, Witcher 3, how you can tackle it in a number of ways, or like something like Hitman. But you're not going to get that level of variety from something like Hitman in this game. Hitman is built around the variety, but there's one specific stranger quest in specific that we both encountered surprisingly around the exact same time. Did we not?
Yeah.
It was maybe like a couple of hours apart. I told you about what I did, and then you had the same thing, and you had a different path. And these aren't really too much of a spoiler, but there's no story stuff to it. I was walking down the road, and a prisoner ran out of the forest and was like, "Oh, sir, you gotta help me, please!" And he's got like a chain around his ankles, and he's pleading with you to shoot the chain, right? That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to shoot the chain, right? And that's what you did.
Right.
What happened after you shot the chain? That's what you're supposed to do, quotation marks.
Right. He tells me that he has some helpful information for me, which he does, and as a thief / bad guy.
Well, he gives you the location of a robbery, right?
He gives me the location of where some treasure might be.
Mm-hmm.
And there was treasure.
There was treasure. Alternatively, what I did was I saw this guy run out. He's a prisoner, and I was like, I'm going to be the good guy. I'm going to be the lawful citizen. And I hogtied that bitch and threw him on the back of my horse. I brought him all the way to Valentine. I was wondering if people were going to get mad at me for kidnapping the whole time, if that was going to be like I wasn't supposed to do this kind of broken thing. Got all the way to the sheriff's office, took him off the horse, brought him in, plopped him down. Sheriff went, "Oh shit, we were looking for that guy," and gave me like $50, and that was it. I didn't have to do that. The game told me to shoot the chain or whatever. I didn't, and I just got paid for it still, and I got rewarded for it. And there was dialogue behind it. There was like, "We were looking for that guy. Thank you." So, pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
And this is a little less special as it goes on, but like the snake bite thing, I think everybody's experienced the snake bite thing.
Right.
I've experienced it 4 times. But
yeah, they keep replaying.
But the best part about that though is that I experienced this. So in case you're unfamiliar with it, there's a point where you can come across somebody who gets bit by a snake in the forest, and you can either give them a potion or whatever to cure the poison, or you can suck the poison out. And if you do that, they'll actually end up meeting you back in the closest town, where they can say like, "Oh, go buy something from the gunsmith on me," or "Go buy something from the general store on my tab." And I thought that was really, really cool until I realized everybody else had done it too, and alone.
Right.
But then I did it again down by like roads, and then I did it again down by roads. And the second time I did it down by roads, it was the same guy, and Arthur even went, "Oh my god, all right, I guess I'll save you again." And then I gave him another health potion, whatever. And the guy got up and went, "Oh, thank you, sir. Don't worry, it won't be happening again." And Arthur went, "Yeah, damn well better, because I'm not going to give you another thing." And I was just like, see, that's kind of cool. They put like, but whatever.
I did one where the guy asked for that, and I gave him a potion, and he looked at it, broke it, and said, "That's not going to help me," and fell over and died.
Yeah, I also had that. It's kind of funny. I was like, "I don't know what you want me to do then, fuckhead. You could die." There was another interesting interaction that I love. I was camping up in the north, like top right part of the map,
Mm-hmm.
the hillbilly place.
Mm-hmm.
And
I know what you're talking about.
these two guys show up, and they're like, and they're like incesty hillbilly kind of scary cult people. And they're like, you better watch where you're camping. Don't you know? These are dangerous parts. And I was like, holy shit, this is creepy as shit. And it was creepy as shit because I was like, you know, I had just set up my camp. I popped on my phone to see if I had any messages. And then all of a sudden, it was almost like a jump scare. The guy pops out. I was like, whoa. And all he did was warn me that I shouldn't be camping around them. And as he was going away, I shot the two guys in the back of the head with Deadeye. And after I did that, Arthur went, I camp where I damn well please. And I was like, oh, fuck yeah. So
you're evil.
This game is awesome. I'm evil. Mm-hmm. This game is awesome. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, it is.
Was there any other little mini stranger stories you had?
I don't remember them offhand. I mean, I was like, I don't think we should mention like every single one.
No. Yeah. I will. We'll quickly talk about some of the gameplay then. What do you think of the gunplay in this? I know it's a widely sort of contested topic on Rockstar Games. I know Grand Theft Auto 5 feels very like floaty in the gunplay and not kind of like it's not really any weight behind it. That was a big thing they stressed in this game, was that they wanted to make it feel weighty. Do you think that it does?
I mean, it's like if you don't like Rockstar's game style, this isn't going to win you over.
Right.
You know, I think it is a little more fine-tuned. I mean, there are things I don't like about it, but there are other things that I do like about it. I mean, the cover-based shooting is fine. You know, I don't really think it has necessarily positives or negatives. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
And you just have to get used to what it is.
I think the gun's sound and the recoil a little bit more is better and works towards that. Makes it feel a little weightier, but for the most part, yeah, I agree with you. The interesting thing I wanted to talk about with this is the gore, though.
Oh, yeah, that's fun.
Because I've always said that Rockstar Games should have gore. I wanted to see what it was like to shoot somebody, you know, a bunch of bullets in GTA and just tear them apart. This game does have that, really. And it is great. There are moments where I like shot somebody in the head with a high-powered rifle and only like a small portion of his head was blown off. Or like if I execute somebody with a shotgun at close range, his entire head just blows up. Mm-hmm. Or if you blow up dynamite underneath somebody, all of their legs and limbs blow off and all that. It was great. A couple good moments I had of gore that I wanted to talk about. I came across a couple of dudes who had stolen a safe. And we're not going to talk about too much of the little side things you can find, like the little stranger missions, but there are probably thousands of them. Every time I play the game, I find another one that I haven't done, which is pretty rad. Like I'm still trying to figure out how I can trigger some sort of mission with the preacher dude in the water. I feel like there's something with him, but these two guys that had the safe were trying to crack it with a stick of dynamite, and they lit it off, and I went up and I just called out to them, and I was like, hey, what you doing? And they turn around and they're like, hey, leave us alone, we're trying to crack it. But I distracted them after they lit the dynamite, so they didn't have enough time to get away, so it blew them both up and all of their limbs were gone. And it knocked me over. The shockwave knocked me over, and then I got up and I took the money from the safe and all of their limbs were gone, and I just wrote about my daily business. But it was just hilarious that I distracted them by calling out to them, thus making them not get to their safe spot, and then they both died.
See, you're evil.
What's that?
I said you're evil.
I know, yeah, I know. And there was another part where in the middle of a combat mission, I can't remember which one it was, but it was in the snow area. So up towards the top of the map. It might have just been a little instance I had with somebody, like another little aside mission thing. But I shot somebody in the neck and it didn't kill him. But it had like that dark red X. You know, you can get that where it's going to kill him, but not quite right now.
Right.
And his neck starts like spurting blood and it sprays all over the snow. And I think we talked about it in Django Unchained. I love me some blood on the snow effects. So it's spurting everywhere and I'm like, ooh. And the dude like stumbling and walking and he like rolls down the cliff after he dies and falls off, and it was just awesome. You're right, I am evil. Huh. Anyway, gore is fun.
It is. I agree.
Now, a big part of the game that we were very excited. Wait, do you have any gore stories or no?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. Now, a big part of the game we were super excited going into it, like unreal excited for, was the music, right?
Yeah, well,
I think we were
because
both unreal
I
excited.
wanted it to be the same people. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was Woody Jackson, and he actually brought in a couple of other people to help him out, much like he did with GTA 5 and bringing in Tangerine. But yeah, like, what do you think about the music in the first Dead Redemption?
I thought it was terrible. Can't stand it.
You fucking idiot. You make that joke every single time.
I can't help it. I thought it was great. I mean, it's probably one of the better soundtracks there are, you know?
It's got some of the most memorable music. I still, like, I hum the stuff to myself daily.
It's very atmospheric, and there are spoiler things that we could say, but we probably shouldn't.
But, you know, I think Red Dead Redemption, yeah, like, it had a fantastic soundtrack. It probably has, like, what, 20 or 30 songs in it. Grand Theft Auto 5, again, brought in Tangerine Dream, which I thought was awesome and really fit the feel of that game, like the sort of synthwave LA kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that game has like 150 tracks. And then Red Dead Redemption 2, I'm pretty sure, has like 700. Because, man, there's a lot of really dope-ass music in this game. It's almost a perfect follow-up to that game. And I was going in expecting all of the iconic music again, right? Or at least it to be there. Like, you go into another Star Wars movie or wait for the Star Wars music, you know? Every time something cool happens in Star Wars, you're waiting for I was waiting to be like walking down the path in Red Dead and having like that sort of whistle tune play along, and it never did.
Nope.
And then so I was kind of like, where is it? And I think it took me about 20 hours or 30 hours before I went, holy shit, they just did completely new music because this is Arthur's story.
Right.
That's all John's music and John's story. Red Dead Redemption 1 is a story of isolation, almost loneliness, and there's the outlaw life catches up with you kind of thing. This has similar themes, but not exactly the same. There's a lot of different themes, so there's a lot of different music to go with that too. And again, without getting into spoilers, there's some moments in this game, Red Dead Redemption 1 does pop up in some ways, in some small fleeting glimpses. I think the earliest example of it is in the very first mission, which can we spoil that, you think?
It's up to you, man.
Yeah, we can do it. You know, in the very opening mission of the game, you rescue John up in the snow. And when you pick him up and are like bringing him to your horse because he's all frostbitten and cold, it does play that little like, just like very kind of subtly. And I think that was sort of the introduction of like, or almost Rockstar saying, listen, that stuff is John's music, okay? We're not doing that.
Right. Yeah.
We're doing something new. And I think the music that they did is awesome. It's just awesome.
I agree.
And there are some original songs, like with lyrics in this game as well, much like there was in the first game. There are more in this game than there was in the first game. I think there were 2 in the first game. There was Far Away and Dead Man's Gun, which was played over the credits. I think there's maybe 6 or 7 in this game. And god damn, I want all of them on Spotify. And as of this recording, they're not out yet. And hurry up, Rockstar. Please.
They don't want to spoil what they are.
I don't want to spoil what they are because all of them are, you know, all of them are spoilery. They all pop up at these perfect moments, much similarly to the way Far Away pops up in the game, in the first game, where when John gets over to Mexico in Red Dead Redemption 1, it's not the exact same, but it's a similar feeling when every single song pops up, and it's impeccable stuff. Rockstar just has full control over everything. They know what they're doing. It's fantastic. What do you like about the music?
All of the things you said. I mean, having a motif for a character, using it sparingly, and allowing the new character to have his own story, his own music, his own atmosphere is the perfect solution.
Yeah.
the quality of it and the memorableness of it and everything else is of the same quality as the first one, and it's all the things that you like about a classic Western storyline, and
Right.
it's different enough to where it doesn't get like confusing. And so it's like it did all the positive things that I wanted it to, and it set the mood. And it's like he said, I mean, sometimes that's one of the fun things about just going out in an open world game, is because you have those instances where the music can just play, and it has of the gameplay, it has cinematic mode where you hit a button and your horse will just ride along the path as long as you've set a waypoint, and then you can just kind of enjoy the atmosphere. And I think if people go into it thinking they're going to rush and do everything and just get through the game, maybe that's why the game is not for them, because it's definitely one of those where it's a different time period, it's a different type of thing. They want you to get involved with it and take your time and have a different type of pacing. And so all that works towards it.
It's very intentionally slow.
Yeah.
Because it wants you to experience all those things, which is great stuff. It really, really is. And I'll cut this. Yeah, what do you think is the real faraway moment in this game? Is it Unshaken the first time, or is it that's the way it is?
I don't know, man. I think you have to have all of it.
What's that?
You have to have all of it?
Yeah. You think so?
I think if you single it out and only do the one, it doesn't have the impact as going through the story and the way they want it to be told, and when it comes in.
You don't think there's one song that hits and you're like when Far Away hits and you're like, oh fuck. You think you need that? You need to experience that whole thing?
I do think so. Yeah.
I had to make a cut here in the conversation, which means it's going to sound a little janky when it comes back in. I'm actually doing this while editing the cast, because we went on about a 15-minute spoiler-filled rant without even thinking, and I figured that we would keep in tone with the spoiler-free review that we were doing. So yeah, it's going to be a little janky, but spoiler-free.
We will definitely have to do a spoiler one soon.
Right.
We'll do it soon.
Right.
Well then, that's basically all the ground we kind of want to cover, isn't it?
I would think so.
For Red Dead Redemption 2, spoiler free.
For non-spoiling.
Yeah. Now we do want to come back and talk about the story alone and plot beats and its entire arc and characters a little more in depth later on. That's something we really want to do because we really do love this story with passion. But for now, that's I think all we want to talk about was spoiler free. This is well and truly a very close to, if not perfect, game in a lot of aspects. The story certainly I think is perfect. I think there's a couple of gameplay elements that are missing. But I would be lying if I said I didn't think this was one of the greatest games ever made. Certainly one of the greatest stories ever told in gaming. And if you haven't already checked it out, I don't know what's wrong with you unless you're on PC. Well, then you have an excuse. But otherwise, just play this game. Why aren't you playing it right now? And then I guess we'll move on to talk a quick little tiny bit about the online. And a quick little tiny bit because there's nothing in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I mean, you only get like the first quarter of the online, the first like mission.
Yeah.
Of the, so
there's not a lot of story in it right now. They even said it's not done yet. But it is in beta, well and truly. I thought that was just they were just lying about it being in beta to cover their asses when there's no content in the game. Or whatever. Or if it had a bad launch like GTA 5, they were just covering their asses. But no, this is legitimately just a beta. Like they're testing out the kinks, they're working it out. Microtransactions are in the game now, but they weren't for a while.
Which makes me think then it's not a beta if they're already charging.
I know. But could be worse, could be Ark. Which released a full priced DLC while it was still in early access. Yep. But what do you think about the online a little bit so far? Because I know we have played a bit of it together. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, if you have the right group of friends, it could be a lot of fun. But if you have the right group of friends, playing anything online is fun.
Uh-huh.
It's just the fact that there's not a lot of content. Even if you start leveling up and getting money, there's really not a whole lot of things to spend it on.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you can have more than one horse, but you can only ride one horse.
Right.
And like you can have clothes, but you basically really only have one set of clothes you can have at once. If you do headshots, every weapon kills in one shot.
Yeah. There's no need for better weapons if you're just killing him.
Right. So it's either all cosmetic, or you don't really have anything to spend the money on, and then there's no real content. So you can just fart around with your friends or do some of the deathmatch stuff. But that gets old after a while because it's all
fun,
pretty
but
much the same.
does get old. Yeah. There's only so many times we can tackle each other into the mud and beat the shit out of each other for 6 hours straight before it gets a little boring.
Right.
Which is hysterical, though. I know that's something that we did quite a bit, was we would just have extended fist fights. Like at one point we went to Braithwaite Manor and we just fist fought each other for like 3 hours.
And, in the room and everything. And then it's like we would go up on a windmill and try to knock each other off the windmill.
Yeah. Or we would that was funny too. Try to hang each other with your lasso.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while we would have one person roll up, a random other player, not in our friend group, that would roll up. And he would see what was going on, and he would either join us or he would be a bitch. And the funniest thing is that because we're not in a posse in online to fist fight each other, you can't fist fight if you're in a posse. So he just thinks that we're a bunch of random people just fist fighting each other. So he'll come up and shoot one of us, and then we all turn on a dime on him because we're not going to shoot each other, but we're just going to shoot him, and then we just shoot the shit out of him repeatedly. It's hilarious.
Yeah, and it's like it's sad that that's the kind of almost the best thing in the game because they haven't really come up with any good content.
Yeah, that is true.
And that's the thing, is like you can pay a lot of money to have like a camp, but then you don't start in the camp, and the camp is almost always far away from where you spawn.
Or not where you paid to move it.
Right.
Which I did do. We had like 6 or 7 people in our little group that we played with, and we have 6 people because we still have one slot, I think. But I had to pay for the big camp. I was the posse leader, and it was like $5 a day or whatever, which isn't bad when you have endless money because there's nothing to spend it on. But you do all that work onto the camp, and you want to upgrade your camp, and you want to buy cool new tents and make your camp look cool. But then there's nothing to do with it. Like, you and your friends can't spawn at the camp. There's no reason to go back there. It's all just very bare bones right now. And while I hope it is going to get a lot more content, I probably haven't played it for 2 or 3 weeks, and I haven't heard that it's gotten content at all. So,
well, they have done updates, but none of the updates have added content.
Right, which is what they should be doing.
Right, and and that's kind of the sad thing. Is like there's a lot of potential there, but a lot of the stuff doesn't really make any sense or isn't really there for any purpose. Like you could see. And it's like I can't contribute to the camp looking better. Like we can't pull our money together to buy something.
Right. You
can't steal horses to keep them. You can't rob people. It's like all the things that you could do in the single player game, you can't do in the multiplayer game. Right. There are so many things that you can't sell. There's no reason to ever buy any food. There's really no reason to go into a town to buy something because you have a catalog on you that can buy stuff.
Yeah, and you'll just get shot by another player.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like
method for a while was killing pigs too.
Right. And it's like in GTA 5, you could start an entire instance with just the people in your posse and have the world to yourself. Well, you can't do that here. There's no amount of money or anything you can pay. You just have to go into a public session.
Right.
Which is stupid.
Oh yeah.
It's like I know why they did it, but then they like made it unfun to do it.
I totally agree with that. Which is a shame because I was very excited for the multiplayer. I thought it was going to be excellent, but it launched with very, very little content, and if they don't put any out soon, then it's just going to be dead to me. Really.
They're going to lose any players they have.
I put my time into the game. I've played the single player for like 200 hours. I don't care really about the multiplayer unless it's going to grab me. And I said that originally. I said I bought the Ultimate Edition or whatever, so my $100 and whatever was going for the single player. I wasn't buying it for the multiplayer. So the multiplayer had to do something to grab my attention. And it did for a bit. We played it for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I really quickly went back to Rainbow Six Siege. And then now that's all I play again.
I know, and I need to start playing that so
Yeah.
I can join in too.
That game is
I know.
frustratingly difficult when there are endless grief game too, but
Well, I completely suck is the problem.
that's fine, so do I. The good thing about that game is there are many more ways to help. If you can just play a character that bashes in a door and then that's all you want to do and the rest of the team goes in and kills everyone, then you did your job because you busted down the door kind of thing. Right. So right. But still
I'll get there eventually.
Hopefully this game gets some content in the online pretty soon, or it's going to really die, but at the same time maybe it'll be a Destiny thing. Because I do love the game with a passion, you know. I love all of Rockstar, like we said earlier. I love the way the game plays out. I love the world, and I love designing my own character and all that. Maybe I put it down for a year, and I check in late 2019 and just absorb all of the content that they added since then. But at the same time, I don't want to do that because I did that with GTA 5, and I got so lost with the money.
Right.
I was so far behind that I couldn't do any of the fun stuff because I didn't have any money.
Well, I'm hoping maybe they just took time off for the holidays, and now they're going to get back.
Yeah, and I would imagine that's what they are doing. We should have something by maybe March, but
yeah, we'll wait.
If not, I can't see what else we would do.
Yeah, I mean, if they add something, we'll be there. If not, we'll just keep waiting.
Exactly.
Other things to do.
There's other things to play, and like I said, I already put the time in with the single player, so it's not like
I'll just go back to watching 1 billion movies a year.
Yep, exactly. I'll just go play the single player again. I've kind of want.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, in case the audience doesn't realize, I bought an Xbox One so that I could play it with Alex online. So I actually have 2 copies of Red Dead Redemption 2, one for the PS4 and one for the Xbox One.
And do you feel like you wasted your money at all with the Xbox?
No. I mean, first off, I wanted to get an Xbox anyway.
Yeah.
And then because I got the bundle, I actually got the game basically for free.
Right.
So it didn't bother me. You know, it's not like I felt like it was a bad purchase or that I wasted my money because I was, you know, I mean, there's PlayStation 4 has a lot of games that are only on PlayStation 4. And the Xbox doesn't necessarily have that, but the Xbox does have. I mean, I have some 360 games that you can play on the one.
Yeah, that's true. There is backwards compatibility.
Also, like Forza, you can't get on any of the PlayStation.
And especially Horizon is one of the best paid.
Yeah. So sometimes
I'm glad you didn't waste.
I have that and a gaming computer
because I was feeling bad about that. I was like, shit, we're not even playing it.
No, I would not make a purchase solely based on somebody else having to do something.
Okay, good. That would be very dumb.
Yeah. And I have enough money. That's, $200 isn't going to make or break.
Oh, look at Mr. Moneybags over here.
Well, it's not money bags, but it's like a couple $100 isn't going to, in the stream of things that doesn't. I had it and I bought what I wanted out of it, and I've had that where you go and see a movie for a couple hours, and you pay $10-12. So
that's true.
Do that 10 times.
Yeah. Is there anything else, Garrett, for our spoiler-free Red Dead Redemption 2 talk?
No, you can go ahead and get Craig out of here. I saw you typing.
I was just doing it just for the sake of it. But
no, I don't have anything. It's like you said, if someone hasn't played it, you need to play it to see whether or not you like it. Not everyone loves it. And I can understand the complaints about it. It's not like they're invalid, especially if it's subjective things. I don't like this. But I think people complain about it and they don't necessarily give the positives the weight that the positives have. Yes, there are negatives. Yes, they don't like about it. It's still one of the best games ever made.
Closing thoughts then. You've probably already played this game if you are listening to it. Most people have. If you haven't, though, I highly, highly recommend it. It's one of those. It is one of the all-timers, in my opinion. I would put it up beside the first Red Dead Redemption and The Witcher 3, Limbo, Inside, like Portal 2, Oblivion, New Vegas, those kind of games. Maybe to the lower tier of some of those games. I don't know. I do think I like it more than the first Red Dead, though. So maybe it is up there with the highest. And I replayed the entire first Red Dead like in the 2 weeks leading up to this game coming out. So my opinion's valid.
Well, and
it's
the other
like
thing is
with rose tinted goggles or whatever. Like I just played the first one. I know what the first one is like still.
Well, the other games you've had time to reflect over them. This one really did just come out a few months ago.
That is true.
So in a couple of years' time, you might feel differently. I might feel differently. That's true. I still think if you take away gameplay and decision making and all those other things, and you just look at the quality of the game and the story of the game, those two things I think aren't going to be, Last of Us is still really good, even though graphics have improved since then. So I think it's one of those things where that side of it is not going to go down and you're still going to feel the same way about it. But there may be some gameplay issues or what happens with the online might, alter your opinion years in the future. But it's still a really good game regardless.
The story is still going to get me.
Yeah.
You're still going to have that connection no matter what.
Yeah. Because I think those things are timeless.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely timeless. And I'm sure when they release the official soundtrack, I'll just get sucked right back into the world again, and I'll be having that on repeat the entire time, and I'll want to play the game. Just that effect that Rockstar has. It's the Rockstar effect. Just pull you in and keep you there.
I just hope they don't announce the PlayStation 5 at E3 this year, and then they come out with a new version with stuff that's not in this.
Oh yeah, like what they did with the Xbox One kind of thing.
Well, yeah, like they did with GTA 5.
Yeah, with GTA 5.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
No, that's kind of shitty. Hopefully they don't do that, but they will.
and the thing is, Red Dead Redemption 1 never came out for the PC.
Right.
So the second,
I'm sure this one
might
will,
not ever come out for the PC.
No, I'm sure it will. There was an issue with the code Dead, which is why it never came out.
Yeah.
But, and as we'll talk about in our other one, that opens up.
I know what you're thinking of.
Yeah, but otherwise, I think that's probably going to do it, right?
Yep.
Cool.
Follow us on Twitter. We love you.
Like and subscribe. Smash that like button. Hit the bell. No, but gonna do it for this episode then of the Digital Drive-In Podcast. Of course, my name is Alex, and I was joined by Garrett. I didn't introduce at the top of it all, but I'm introducing us now. You can find us down here at the Drive-In every single week. We talk about our favorite movies and what we love about them and why we love them and what makes them great. And this time it wasn't a movie, though. It was a video game. Well, this is the week, you dumb shit. But like I said, this one's a little special episode. Next week, we're going to be back on track, back to the numbers. Number 11. I think. Yep, number 11. We're going to be talking about Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth. So,
wow.
Get ready to have a whole lot of heated discussions as I rave about the movie and Garrett hates it.
Whatever. You saw what I rated it on Letterboxd.
Yeah, half a star.
Wow.
Putting words in his mouth.
Sell me out like that?
Yeah. So you'll just have to tune in next week to find out if Garrett really does hate Pan's Labyrinth, and thus is he a monster or not.
Wait, only monsters rated low? That's weird. So what would Pan rate it?
I mean, Pan's
or is
not
Pan even a monster?
Pan's not a person. Pan's not a character.
Pan is a fairy. It's a mythology character.
Yeah, not in the movie.
Wait, so he owns the labyrinth, but he's not even in the movie?
Pan's Labyrinth is catchier than the Labyrinth of the Fawn, which is the literal translation of the Spanish.
Oh, see, I thought it was the peanut butter guy.
Anyway, bye. The room. also adding this in at the end because I'm an idiot and I totally forgot to put it in the other part. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at digital_podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Alex's Reviews. You can follow Garrett at Twitter at Garrett Donardo. You can also follow both of us on Letterboxd, which is how you can stalk us and watch all of our movie habits. You can find that in the link below on our names, in the description at the bottom in our credits section. You can click on the link of our names, and it should bring you to our letterbox where you can take a fancy look at all of our favorite movie lists and what we're watching in real time. We update it daily as we watch fun things, and if you pay attention, if you follow both of us, you might be able to see some future movies if we happen to watch the same thing on the same day or around the same time. Anyway, I thought I'd just pop on in at the end of the cast while I'm editing and add in little Twitter handles because I totally forgot it. But be sure to tune in next week as we talk about Pan's Labyrinth, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And Garrett likes it too, even though I give him a hard time about it. So yeah, all right, well, have a good one. Thanks for listening, if you're listening. And we'll catch you on the flip-flop.